You're listening to Nooga Radio and NoogaRadio.com, 92.7 FM, Clutch with Keon Rose. Thank you for joining me today and making me just a small part of your day. You know that I appreciate each and every one of you. It's officially October. The ALDS has started today. It is officially October. It's not October until the baseball starts. It might say October on your calendar before then. It ain't October until the baseball starts. Now, I do want to talk about Cam Newton some more because that story has continued to develop. I talked about it a little bit yesterday, Cam Newton and his sexist remarks to that reporter that asked him a question about routes. We'll get there in just a second, but I do have something to say about people who are complaining about the length of baseball games. If you are somebody who complains about the length of baseball games typically, I am someone who has had, historically, sympathy for you, right? We have an entire baseball season. It's, 162 games. And you are essentially, if you are a diehard baseball fan, just giving hours and hours of your summers to baseball. And I get it. It's hard to do. There's lots of time. Sometimes you don't get to finish the game. Sometimes you got to get to bed early. If the game is on the West Coast, God forbid, you don't even get to see the end of the game. Either you don't get to bed on time or you don't get to see the end of the game. One of the two. I have always been sympathetic towards people who like baseball and yet say that the games are too long. Because in a lot of ways they are, and we've seen how much faster these games can go with the introduction of the pitch clock that you see in a lot of these minor league stadiums. I went down to see the Lookouts earlier this summer, and there's a pitch clock, and the game whizzes by, relatively speaking. And so, yeah, you want the game to go faster in a lot of ways. But, man, when the playoffs start, how is it possible that you could complain about the length of the game for the games that actually matter? Do you like baseball? I'm curious. I'm actually curious. Do you enjoy watching the sport? Because if you actually like watching it, then yes, the broadcast time and the pageantry. Like, no one complains about the length of the NBA playoffs once the playoffs start. Now, you might get to the end of the finals and look back and go, wow, really? It's almost July. And no one complains about the length of football games and all the commercials and football games during the Super Bowl, right? Like, the Super Bowl is almost entirely commercials. I have sympathy if you complain about commercials during the regular season, but like the playoffs, come on, man. That's part of what this thing is. Yeah, baseball game took almost 4 hours to watch. Oh, boo-hoo. It's baseball, right? We got an exciting AL wildcard game. We had an exciting NL wildcard game. Last night, Diamondbacks beat out the Rockies in a high-scoring affair, 11-8. You're getting good baseball. It's not like you're not getting something good, right? You watch the AL wildcard. You got to see Byron Buxton make big plays early in that game before he got lost to injury. And then Aaron Judge. Last night, Diamondbacks put up 11 runs. And I get on the internet and people are complaining about how long the game was. What on earth are you doing? It's the postseason. Stop it. Stop it. Like, if you actually like watching baseball, more baseball is not a bad thing. Get out of here. Tired of it. Clutch with Keon Rose on 92.7 FM, Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com, which is good. Now we're going to get to some serious stuff here because Cam Newton had a remark yesterday that he said to a reporter. The reporter's name is Jordan Rodriguez, and she asked Cam Newton a question about routes, right? And not even a super complicated question. She didn't ask a pretentious question. She basically asked a question about if Cam liked the fact that he has a physical receiver that can run physical routes. That's the question. And Cam Newton, who could have answered the question, or if for whatever reason he didn't like the question, and I can't possibly imagine why, could have ignored the question, said no comment and I'm not answering that, decided to say, I think it's pretty funny that a female is asking me a question about routes. Now, this is sexism, right? Like that is what it is. Blatantly, openly, and plain and simple, right? And Cam seems to be the person most unaware, right? Cam Newton said that he feels regret. That's what the statement said, that he feels regret. So that not that he's sorry. He's not sorry about what he said. He's not sorry at all. Just that he feels regret. But this does go to the larger conversation of the way that we view women in society. And I would say to the way we view women inside the world of sports, that there is a certain kind of woman, if you watch any sports show, that winds up being the moderator or the sideline reporter. There's a certain kind of woman, usually someone who's just good to look at generally, that winds up in those jobs, and they have to work incredibly hard to get those opportunities as is, right? And to me, that strikes me as horribly unfair, right? And these women, I think, get disrespected very frequently. We don't talk about it. We don't acknowledge it. But when a woman is asking a question of a coach and she's called sweetheart, that you need to understand that is demeaning, that is a way of, quote unquote, putting her in her place. And that there were a number of people when Christine Leahy on Colin Cowherd's show, when Christine Leahy went at LeVar Ball, that LeVar Ball wouldn't look at her, wouldn't talk to her, wouldn't acknowledge her at all. And people were fine with the way that he did that. And fine with the way that he handled that. That he literally told a woman reporter to stay in her lane. That, to me, is a problem. And the bigger problem is that we are all cool with it. Because if we're all cool with it, then I just hate to break the news to you, but we are all complicit then. All of us. Right? That if you are a guy and you watched that happen and you were just fine with that, knowing that there's not a male reporter that would be treated that way. You're complicit in it. So am I. Right? Like Jordan Rodriguez would ask that question of Cam Newton, and if she were a man named Jordan, he probably answers the question. Because he later tried to say, well, I meant reporters in general. Like what? No, reporters. Really? Reporters didn't ask you questions about routes before? That Cam Newton has been in the NFL for 7 years and he's never been asked a question by a male reporter about routes before because he's never commented on them like this. Oh, I just think it's funny that a reporter is questioning me about routes. That's not what he said. That's not what he meant. It's bogus. So now he's been dropped as a sponsor, right? By Dannon Yogurt, whose demographic in large part, Dannon, Yoplait, a lot of the yogurt companies are, in fact, women. And I feel like Dannon knows immediately that this is not something that they can stand by. They immediately dropped Cam Newton as a sponsor, which makes sense and is fair. Like if someone is going to say those kinds of things and remark in those kinds of ways and not be particularly apologetic about it, then you can't stick with them. That person cannot be your spokesperson. You cannot pay that person to endorse your product, right? But I'm not what you do if you're the NFL or you're the Carolina Panthers, right? They've condemned what Cam has said. The Panthers said that he was wrong. The NFL said that he was wrong. That Cam Newton has been condemned by his employers. And to me, that's a good start. I don't think that the league should punish him for this, though. Because that gets into a different area that I don't like, right? And I saw that online, too, that people were like, well, Cam should be suspended. He should be fined. And I think that is a different issue now, because now you're getting into we're going to police Cam Newton's thoughts and opinions. That his thoughts and opinions are certainly sexist. His thoughts and opinions are most certainly discriminatory in nature. But somehow Cam is going to be punished for it. But no. I don't like where that goes. Where someone has an opinion on something, and based on what it is that they think, they're punished. No, Cam has the individual right to say what he wants to say, even if what he is saying is wrong, and it is wrong. Right? That Cam Newton feels regret over what he said is that he feels regret that she was hurt by it, and he feels regret that he is in trouble for it. I don't think he's sorry. Right? I don't think publicly he's ever going to say that again, and that's a start. Right? You raise a big enough stink about this kind of stuff that it's a start for him to not be able to openly voice these specific opinions. And that at least people watching on the outside see that it's not okay. But as far as taking measures against Cam Newton, as far as talking about suspending him and fining him, then you get into that thought police area that's not good and specifically un-American. I mean, that area needs to be avoided. You cannot punish someone for their thoughts, even if their thoughts are wrong or racist or sexist. It's not appropriate, but you can't get into that business, right? Because where does it stop? Now, I think that there's another layer to this story as well. Like, and the reason why this is taking so long to talk about, because there's a certain other layer to this story, right? Which is that the reporter then had a tweet dug up, because that's the age that we live in now, in the internet age, where you have a tweet from 4 or 5 years ago. Maybe you said something stupid. Maybe you weren't the most educated person. Maybe your opinions changed. Maybe something that you thought was funny is now not funny to you. But she had a tweet that had a racial slur in it that somebody dug up. And so now this is being used to minimize what she's going through, right? Like, oh, look, she had a tweet, she retweeted something, and the thing was racist. And how can she talk about sexism if she's going to be behaving this way? Even though I should point out that absolutely nobody asked this question of Cam Newton, who scored a touchdown last week and then put his fist up for Black Power. How Cam could struggle against racial inequality and not understand that sexual inequality hurts as well, that gender inequality hurts as well. No one asked that question of Cam, but they did ask that question of her, which tells us, I think, what you think about Cam and Cam's level of thought. But for her, she had this tweet. The tweet read something along the lines of, Dale Earnhardt Jr. is a blank. Can't say either of those things on the air, so you're just going to have to put together in your own head what that means. But essentially, the N-word was involved. She retweeted the tweet, which on Twitter is an endorsement of the tweet. Okay, she doesn't get to slide on that. But at the same time, using that tweet to somehow minimize her point that as a female reporter, she is treated differently than her male counterparts is unintelligent and silly. Right? It's just dumb. And there's no getting around it. Like, there's no two ways to rectify the situation. Yeah, she should not have retweeted that tweet. She should not have taken it there. She should not have gotten to that level. But on the other hand, how does that make her wrong? Female reporters are treated differently. They are treated lesser than. And so how is it that you are able to be moving backwards in this particular kind of way? She was treated unfairly. She had her question laughed off, and she had it laughed off specifically because she was a woman. And that's wrong, right? So I saw I saw a tweet earlier today from somebody that I really, really like and respect. JT the Brick is a guy. I listened to JT the Brick growing up as a kid. Really influenced me so far as radio goes. I mean, that guy, I listen to him every afternoon for my entire high school run, right? Like, that was 4 years of listening to one guy and his sports opinions every afternoon. He was on Twitter today, and I was very disappointed in a tweet that he put out, which was essentially that, Cam Newton, he said Cam Newton shouldn't be suspended. He shouldn't be punished. But that this is bad for his brand. And I went, way to bury the lead on that, right? Like, yeah, I completely agree. I don't think that Cam Newton should be punished in that way. I don't. He's had an opinion that is wrong, but it is an opinion. It's a thought. It's an idea. It lives in his head, and it escaped out of his mouth. But let's be honest. The damage that was done was not when he said his sexist opinion. The damage was done because he was being sexist all along. The fact that he has these opinions are what's wrong. So you really shouldn't be trying to punish that. You're going to punish someone's ideas. I completely agree on that. But if the issue here for you is that this is bad for Cam's brand, you are entirely missing the point. This has nothing to do with branding, right? Just be completely honest here. Blank Cam's branding. Bleep Cam's branding. What does it have to do with branding? It's not the branding that's the problem. It's the ideas that are the problem. And ideas that are a problem, not because he has them, not because they need to be punished, but because if Cam has these opinions, you need to realize and understand he's not the only one. Right? Cam did not invent sexism yesterday. It's been around. That we have made women feel inferior to us for a very long time, for a litany of reasons that make no sense whatsoever. And we're talking about equality. We're talking about equality, right? You've got players taking a knee for equality. And then you've got one of the guys that is trying to represent that level of equality when he's celebrating after touchdowns. And he's not understanding the struggle. And he's not understanding other people's struggles. That there's a level of pain, that there's a level of advantage that comes with being a man. And I don't think that that's wrong to say. It doesn't make you some kind of, twisted feminist to say, oh, I have inherent advantages from being a man. Advantages, by the way, that I exploit and take advantage of all the time. I'm a guy in sports broadcasting. And if you think that this is easier if you're a woman, it's not. If you're an attractive woman, you get opportunities that maybe I don't get. Like an average looking woman that just loves sports and wants to broadcast, this is going to be an uphill battle for you every single day of your life. And in fact, there are going to be moments where being a pretty woman, where being an attractive woman in the media business cuts against you, because there's some level of thought that men have deep down inside that the prettier a woman is, the dumber she is. We don't treat women the same. And we have to admit that. At least admit it. I feel like that's not where we should stop. But at least admit that hurts. That if you're a woman and you've poured all of this time and money and effort into being the best reporter that you can be, and then you stand at the podium with all of your male counterparts and you ask a question that's relevant to the situation, that's necessary. You know what you're talking about. You put in the work. You watched the game. And to have your question laughed off simply because you're a woman is insane. And I had a friend one time tell me, he didn't want to hear a woman talk to him about sports. Like, there's an idea that if a woman is an authority on sports, it's not possible. Like, it's just not possible. And that's crazy to me. I mean, it's absolutely insane. We have advantages over women. There's societal and systemic advantages. And the least we can do is acknowledge they exist. So yeah, I'm disappointed in a bunch of people, right? Disappointed in Cam. I'm disappointed in my guy, JT the Brick. I mean, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed in my friend that a woman can't talk to him about sports. Like if he hears a woman on the radio talking about sports, he changes the dial. Disappointing. Clutch with Keon Rose on 92.7 FM.
Traffic, news, and information. Nooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM. 3, 2, 1. Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
Jonathan Walker, the driver in the deadly Woodmore bus crash case, has been released on bond. His next court date is November the 21st. He faces 34 charges, including 6 counts of vehicular homicide. A motion date is December the 12th. In the Jonathan Walker case, his bond was recently sliced back from $107,000 to $50,000, and on Monday he made that bond. Wednesday afternoon, the county commission voted 6-2 to keep the bus to Confederate General A.P. Stewart on the south lawn of the Hamilton County Courthouse. Voting in favor, Chester Bankston, Jim Fields, Joe Graham, Randy Fairbanks, Greg Martin, and Tim Boyd. Voting to move it were Greg Beck and Warren Mackey. Greg Beck has been in support of moving it for quite a while now. The Sean Hannity Show is on every weekday from 3 to 6 on Nooga Radio. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News Talk 92.7. Now.
Traffic, news, and information. Nooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM. Broadcasting live to over 1 million souls in Chattanooga, the Tennessee Valley, and beyond on frequency modulation 92.7. Sean Hannity. 25,000 watts on digital FM 95.3 HD4. CBS Radio News. NASCAR, Bloomberg Markets, David Tulis, streaming strong at NoogaRadio.com. Live on YouTube and Facebook. Nooga Radio, News Talk 92.7. Chattanooga Radio.
At Summit Rentals and Sales, we understand that bad things can happen to good people. So with a credit score of just 500 and a low down payment, we can help you get into a real nice pre-owned car or truck.
Really? Wow. Can you repeat that?
Sure. At Summit Rentals and Sales, with a credit score of just 500 and a low down payment, we can help you own a real nice pre-owned car or truck. Plus, you can rent one of our vehicles with no credit card or utility bill, starting at $25 a day plus tax. Summit Rentals, 5012 Battlefield Parkway, Ringgold, Georgia. Call 423-667-7167.
Goss Insurance. Yes, we are local. And no, we don't have an 800 number. In fact, our mobile numbers are on our business cards. We live, work, play, and worship in Chattanooga, and we would love to help with your insurance. Business, auto, home, life insurance. Call now, save money. Call Goss Insurance for all your insurance needs. Goss Insurance, 875-2500. 875-2500.
Hey, dude, check this out. Have you ever seen one so big?
Whoa, look at the size of that.
Look at this little itty-bitty one.
Wow, that's really small.
They have them big, small, and everything in between. You'll always find the biggest variety of knives at the knife shop at Frost Cutlery in Ottawa. We're talking about over 40 brands of knives, including Benchmade, W.R. Case & Sons, Booker, and all the Frost Cutlery brands. Now, Sam, you've been to the cutlery shop. Is it amazing?
Spectacular. The knife shop at Frost Cutlery in Ottawa. They have knives, swords, kitchen knives, ammo, and reloading supplies, plus survival gear.
It's the knife shop at Frost Cutlery. Open 7 days a week. Hey, girls, you're going to love this. We're going to the knife shop.
Hey, let's not tell them they have ammo and loading supplies.
The knife shop at Frost Cutlery opens 7 days a week. You'll always find the biggest variety of knives. You're going to love the knife shop at Frost Cutlery in Ottawa. The knife shop.
And tell them David Tulis sent you.
Hi, this is Eric Pelton. Taxes, accounting, business advice. I've got a neat brochure, 12 ways to improve your business profits. Come on by for a free consultation and we'll give you a copy. E.J. Pelton Company, 332-3333. 3339.
He stole out so much cash, such a huge mountain of cash, that he's become a national star. Rick Davis. You know the story. Cash, 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 and more cash. People can't believe it. They want to see it. And now Rick Davis has a new TV show. National TV, USA and Canada. He's got the gold and silver, diamonds and rings. You get dizzy just thinking about it. Rick's selling. Rick's buying. Cash, cash, cash. We interrupt this commercial to bring you an important announcement. Rick Davis National TV Show, reaching over 80 million people nationally and internationally. Check your local listing for airtimes. Rick Davis hasn't gone Hollywood. He's gone Chattanoogan. And Hollywood loves it. And so will you. Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds debut show. See Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds Brainerd Road now. He's got the gold and silver, diamonds and rings. You get dizzy just thinking about it. Rick's selling. Rick's buying. The autographs are free.
This is Chrissy, and this is Summer of Summer Cares. There are too many homeless veterans in Chattanooga. Please help us in our Shoebox for Veterans campaign. You can fill a shoebox with hand warmers, hand sanitizers, hand wipes, cough drops, razors, shaving cream, toothbrush, toothpaste, soap, shampoo, deodorant, snacks, socks, gloves, and even a small blanket.
And make sure you drop your shoeboxes or your shoebox items off at Nooga Radio Studio on Hickson Pike across from Bojangles below Goss Insurance, Sonic on Hickson Pike next to Front Runners, or Alpine Crest Elementary School.
Please join us at the Community Kitchen in Chattanooga on November 10th from 11 to 12:30 and help us distribute these care packages to the homeless veterans of Chattanooga. No veteran should ever go homeless.
Hi, this is Eric Pelton. Taxes, accounting, business advice. I've got a neat brochure, 12 ways to improve your business profits. Come on by for a free consultation and we'll give you a copy. E.J. Pelton Company, 332-3339.
Nooga Radio, digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM knows your opinion is important. So call 800-8949. Agree or disagree. Call 423-800-8949. 800-8949. Nooga Radio, 92.7 FM and 95.3 HD4. News Talk Nooga Radio.
You're listening to 92.7 FM, Nooga Radio, and NoogaRadio.com. Clutch with Keon Rose. How far can Georgia go? Can Georgia actually make the college football playoff? I don't think that that's ridiculous. First off, Georgia's in the East, which means that if they ran into Alabama, they would only run into Alabama the one time. Right? Title game. If they ran into Bama, they'd only run into Bama the one time. And I don't think that losing the title game necessarily precludes you from the playoff. And here's the thing. The national media goes on and on and on about how weak the SEC is, even though the SEC only has one school with a losing record. That's Missouri. Most conferences have at least one or more than one. So of the Power 5 conferences. So that's already a moot point. This desire to make the SEC into this dead conference. They are trying so hard. And you have to twist yourself into all kinds of logical pretzels to do this. It doesn't make any sense. There's only one school in the entire conference with a losing record, right? That's Missouri. So trying to twist the SEC into this dying conference. Meanwhile, the scenario that I think everybody was afraid of happening from the very beginning, the scenario that people were afraid of having happen was, could the SEC get two teams into the playoff? Well, yeah. Because if Bama's undefeated, and if Georgia winds up being undefeated before the title game. What's your argument? And I think this is going to put the committee in a tough spot because we've already seen the committee puts a lot of weight on winning your title game, but that's not necessarily true, right? We had Ohio State, Penn State last season. Penn State, they win the conference title. They win the head-to-head against Ohio State. Penn State misses the playoff. Ohio State gets in. I mean, we've seen the precedent for this. And Georgia has and will have had at some point by the end of the season a number of quality victories. So the question here is, how far can Georgia go? Because they're about to be 6-0 if they are able to beat Vanderbilt this Saturday. If they beat Vanderbilt, how far can this team actually go? Right? Like, that's the thing. They're very good, and they're looking one of the best teams in the nation kind of good. They're looking interchangeable quarterback kind of good, right? They've got Jacob Eason. They've got Jake Fromm. I think they should stick with Fromm. I honestly don't even believe it matters which guy they run out there. Their running game is so dominant and so strong, and that defense is so physical and tough to score on. Like, it barely matters at this point which guy they wind up choosing to be under center. And I think it's a foregone conclusion that Alabama gets in. But we're looking at a situation where Georgia could ultimately wind up being another team in the playoff, and you have to give them that credence. Now, they could just as easily wind up missing the playoff. I'm not going to lie. The College Football Playoff Committee is a group of people whose decisions make no sense to me. And I don't say that in a derogatory kind of way like it's nonsensical. What I'm saying is that the decisions that they are forced to make wind up being so tough. The criteria for how they have to make these decisions wind up being so vague that I literally do not understand how it is that they make these decisions. I don't. They have to account for a number of things. They have to account for, did you win your conference championship? They have to account for, is your record very good? They have to account for, how strong is your schedule? And I think that is where Georgia is the weakest in terms of possibly getting in, is that their schedule is not particularly strong. Right? Like, say what it is that you want to say about the Bulldogs. But beating the brakes off of Tennessee hardly qualifies as a challenge. Right? And unless Mississippi State starts winning football games again, that game is not looking as good. Like, that win qualitatively doesn't look as good. Now, it helps them that Notre Dame still looks good. But your other victories on your schedule include Appalachian State and Samford. Okay, these are not exactly world beaters. So you've got Notre Dame, Mississippi State, and Tennessee as far as quality opponents go. I don't know if we're going to actually qualify Tennessee at this particular juncture as a quality opponent. They are imploding as we speak. Mississippi State, look, that win looked good at the time. Mississippi State, had just beaten up LSU. And then Georgia turns around and hands their behinds back to them. And Mississippi State's lost again. And maybe Miss State can turn it around and raise the quality of that win, which I do anticipate that they will do. But at this particular moment, I don't know. And I feel like for Georgia, how far Georgia can go is up to a lot of factors that aren't really decided by Georgia. Right? They don't really choose their own destiny here. If they beat everybody on the schedule in front of them, I don't think they're guaranteed a college football playoff spot. But I think it would be absolutely outrageous if they didn't get one. Because how would you justify that? Right? Because right now, you take a look at the Associated Press top 25. Top 25, or the top 4, are Bama, Clemson, Oklahoma, Penn State. Right? And that's the same for the coaches poll as well. You'd be hard-pressed to argue that Alabama and Clemson don't deserve to be where they are. Right? And I would argue the same for Oklahoma. Lincoln Riley has got that team playing at a high level. They beat Ohio State. That Ohio State victory for them, by the way, is also a victory that I don't think is holding up quality-wise over the course of the season. But Penn State is undefeated. And if Penn State were to pick up a loss somewhere, and I can't imagine that they don't, because it's not like Penn State's played anybody difficult as well. Right? They've played Akron, Pitt, Iowa, Indiana. Georgia State. Right? Like, they haven't played anybody difficult. But they're going to get into conference play, and they're going to have to play Ohio State. They're going to have to play Michigan. They're going to have to play Michigan State. They're going to have to play Nebraska. And they're going to end their season with a Maryland team that is doing surprisingly well. Right? They're not great, but they're doing better than I would have thought. Does Penn State slip up along the way? And if Penn State does slip up along the way, then what? Penn State slips up, Georgia doesn't, then what? Do you leave out the Big Ten at the cost of putting in 2 SEC schools? And this is the scenario that I believe a lot of people were afraid of. Can one conference really dominate this thing? And then the SEC had something of a drought. They had something of a decline. Alabama didn't decline, but it felt like everybody else did. And the gap between Alabama and the rest of the conference, Alabama and the rest of the league, grew. And I think we forgot about that scenario being possible. What if a conference produces 2 schools that deserve to be in? Now, last year we got a Big Ten answer, right? Ohio State and Penn State. Now, Ohio State got dismantled once they got in, right? It didn't look like they belonged once they got in. And so there's even more controversy there. Right? If it's going to come down between Georgia and Bama, Bama's getting in. But it's not going to come down between Georgia and Bama, because I don't expect Bama to lose. I just don't. I feel like they're still miles ahead of everybody. Right? Ranked number 1 in the nation, and barring some disappointing loss or some really awkward win, probably going to remain number 1 till the end. And it's up to Oklahoma and Penn State to really make this thing truly fascinating. Now, the AP Top 25 has Georgia ranked 5th, whereas the coaches poll has Washington 5th and Georgia 6th. But either way, if Georgia manhandles Vandy, don't you have to put Georgia in the top 4? And if Georgia's in the top 4 in the polls, when it's time for the committee to start meeting, and I forget exactly which point in the season that is, but when it's time for the committee to start meeting and start talking about the playoff, isn't it pertinent then Isn't it necessary then to have to consider the possibility that 2 schools from one conference might find themselves in this playoff? And then what happens? And what happens to the school that's snubbed? And do we end up having a conversation of expanding the college football playoff for this? Because we might have to have that conversation, because we started to have it last year. We're going to have it if it happens again in another conference, which is, of course, there are going to be multiple deserving schools in this situation, right? This is the reason why we have a playoff to begin with, is that there always feels like there's going to be a lot of deserving schools that get left off the list. multiple deserving schools, right? I mean, we get to that point in all sports where if you expand the playoff too wide, then you wind up with a bunch of schools that are in fact undeserving that get in, right? Like you see the NCAA tournament for basketball. It's a 68-team tournament. You better believe there are a number of schools that I don't want to see them. Right? And if it weren't for the brackets and March Madness, nobody would watch any of those games. Right? There are a number of 16 seeded schools in the NCAA tournament in March Madness that get in. We know they're not winning anything. Right? You know, every now and then we'll have a 14 and a 12 and a 13 find themselves into the big dance. 16's never beaten a 1. We have a bunch of schools that aren't doing anything. But we're not at that point in college football yet. And I think that this thing has to expand one more time. Like, I'm not saying it should. I'm okay with 4 teams. But when you have to ask yourself in one season, Ohio State or Penn State, and the belief of many is that you picked wrong. And then you might have to choose the next season. Georgia and somebody. Might be time to expand this thing. It might be time to expand this thing. And you could argue, well, Georgia doesn't play a very difficult schedule. Well, you want to tell me that Oklahoma is? Oklahoma played Ohio State. That is their most difficult team on their schedule. Later, they play TCU, and Oklahoma State scores lots of points, but they don't play any defense. So you tell me, huh? You tell me. Because I don't understand it. Right? Like the difficulty of Oklahoma's schedule, to me, is not leaps and bounds more difficult than the schedule that Georgia's got going on. And if that's the way that this is going to play out, then you have to consider the possibility that the Georgia Bulldogs might miss the playoff in a season that they deserve to make it, or you might have 2 SEC schools in the college football playoff, and then what? Oh, and God forbid both of them meet each other. Right? God forbid that either of those schools meet each other for a national title. The national media would go crazy. They'd lose their minds. And then, of course, you'd have to talk about the SEC being back, right? Which nobody wants to talk about. It's the conversation that absolutely nobody wants to have. Nobody wants to talk about, well, the SEC might be back. Because I have bad news for you, man. Like, all of these conferences are top heavy. This idea that it's just the SEC, that, boy, they've got Alabama, and how could they be considered any good? Like, all of these conferences are top heavy. If Florida State was alone at the top of the ACC for years, right? Like, it was looking like, okay, the best coach in the ACC is Jimbo Fisher, and then who else is there, right? Before Clemson showed up, decided to make things particularly complicated. So what do you do if you're the committee? I don't know. But how far Georgia goes does not feel particularly like it's up to Georgia. Like, even if Georgia wins everything on its schedule, unless they beat Bama in the title game, which that's pretty crazy. That's a crazy thought in and of itself. But unless they do that, they're not really guaranteed anything. Clutch with Keon Rosa, 92.7 FM, Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com. I'm going to shift gears here over to LSU because Ed Orgeron is 5 games into a 5-year contract. And already there are people that are talking about how LSU may have made a mistake Now, I don't see how that's possible, right? Maybe they did make a mistake with Orgeron. I'm saying, how do you know this early? Where is your crystal ball? What are you looking at that gives you this representation that LSU might have made a mistake? Other than the fact that their offense is still not great. Now, you didn't hire Ed Orgeron to fix the offense, right? You hired Ed Orgeron, and Ed Orgeron hired Matt Canada to fix the offense. And Matt Canada, by the way, has largely fixed the offense. I mean, you can say whatever it is that you want to say about this offense and how ineffective it looks at times, right? The first half of that game against Troy, ineffective isn't even a strong enough word to describe what happened. Right? Ineffective is not even a strong enough word to describe what happened there. They just didn't move the ball. They didn't score points. They looked like they were being outplayed by Troy on all three phases of the game. So maybe you can blame Matt Canada for that. But where'd the defense go? Why'd the special teams play so bad? Where is it? Right? Like, Matt Canada has largely fixed the offense. And how I know Matt Canada has largely fixed the offense is that Danny Etling has a 5-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. He has thrown 921 yards this season. He's almost at 1,000, which is where some of the more elite quarterbacks are in that territory. In an offense that, quite frankly, not designed around him. Not at all designed around him. Like, I don't know what LSU fans thought, but you realize your offense still stinks, right? That your offense consists of Darius Geis and, like, nobody else. I'm not impressed by your receivers. Danny Etling, for all the world, is a game-managing quarterback, okay? He's not the playmaker. He's not the go out there and win the ball game for you. You give Danny Etling the ball for the sole purpose of don't lose. And I think he's done a decent job of that. And when he has been asked to be a playmaker, he's shown in spots that he's capable of doing it. And I think that that's big time. I mean, I absolutely think that that's big time. There's no way. There's no way you can win with that. That offense that they have, the offensive personnel that they have, is in dire need of some kind of a fixing, and they haven't actually been able to fix it yet. And people already want to throw the coach out onto the street, which is alarming, right? Completely alarming. So, no, I mean, where do you go with Ed Orgeron, right? What has he actually done to garner the ill will that he's gotten, right? Like, you can say the same thing about Butch Jones. I don't think Tennessee ought to fire Butch Jones. I don't think they should. But I do think that they are going to consider it. And I think that, well, you know, if you're going to consider it, then something about the Butch Jones era is done. Either they let him play this thing out and then he's done, or they fire him and he is done. But one of the two, I really think that they're done with him. I still think it's premature, but I really think that they're done with him. But there are legitimate gripes and concerns with having Butch Jones as your head coach, right? Like, there's still the fact that in big games, he loses. He doesn't beat rivals. In press conferences specifically, Butch Jones doesn't seem to get it. It doesn't click. Whatever it is that Butch Jones is about, it's not working. When he talks to the media, everything he says makes fans upset. Right? He has a tendency to speak in cliches that are simply put infuriating. Absolutely infuriating. So from that regard, it's like, well, what has Butch Jones done? Oh, a lot. A lot to make people upset. Ed Orgeron's been doing this for about 5 games. Like, and at some point, you're just going to have to say, you know what? Let's actually let the coach play out his contract. Let's stop flip-flopping between coaches. You can't have anything built well without stability. And you can't have stability if every time you hire a coach and he struggles in his first 5 games, which, by the way, even Nick Saban did at Alabama, like if he struggles early, out, get him out. You can't have that. It's not useful, nor is it particularly helpful. Where does LSU go next with Ed Orgeron? Hopefully, further than this. Clutch with Keon Rose on 92.7 FM, Nooga Radio, and NoogaRadio.com.
The Tennessee Valley's news talk leader, Nooga Radio, digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM. 3, 2, 1. Chattanooga Radio, digital FM 95.3 HD4, 92.7 FM's news now.
Jonathan Walker, the driver in the deadly Woodmore bus crash case, has been released on bond. His next court date is November the 21st. He faces 34 charges, including 6 counts of vehicular homicide. A motion date is December the 12th. In the Jonathan Walker case, his bond was recently sliced back from $107,000 to $50,000, and on Monday he made that bond. Wednesday afternoon, the county commission voted 6-2 to keep the bus to Confederate General A.P. Stewart on the south lawn of the Hamilton County Courthouse. Voting in favor, Chester Bankston, Jim Fields, Joe Graham, Randy Fairbanks, Greg Martin, and Tim Boyd. Voting to move it were Greg Beck and Warren Mackey. Greg Beck has been in support of moving it for quite a while now. The Sean Hannity Show is on every weekday from 3 to 6 on Nooga Radio. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News Talk 92.7 now.
Broadcasting live to over 1 million souls in Chattanooga, the Tennessee Valley, and beyond on frequency modulation 92.7. Sean Hannity, 25,000 watts on digital FM 95.3 HD4. CBS Radio News, NASCAR, Bloomberg Markets, David Tulis, streaming strong at NoogaRadio.com. Live on YouTube and Facebook. Nooga Radio, News Talk 92.7. Chattanooga Radio.
WBLZ HD4 Ottawa, W224AZ Chattanooga,
92.7, digital FM 95.3 HD4 Chattanooga.
Ban bump stocks so they don't turn rifles into automatic weapons.
Clearly, that's something we need to look into.
4 days after the suspect opened fire in Las Vegas, we're hearing
what investigators are saying they learned from his electronic devices.
This is the CBS World News Roundup Late Edition. I'm Dave Barrett. Following the mass shootings in Las Vegas, the National Rifle Association has commented on the use of bump stocks, which shooter Stephen Paddock had 2 of in his hotel suite. They allowed him to fire thousands of rounds quickly. Now, says CBS's Bill Rakoff.
A statement from the NRA blames the Obama administration for approving the sale of bump stocks and similar devices, and now wants the ATF to see if those devices comply with federal law. The NRA says those devices that allow semi-automatic weapons to function as fully automatic rifles should come under additional regulations. In that same statement, the NRA says Congress should pass national right to carry reciprocity laws in order for Americans to better defend themselves. Bill Rakoff, CBS News, Washington.
At the White House briefing today, spokeswoman Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
Members of both parties in multiple organizations are planning to take a look at bump stocks and related devices. We certainly welcome that.
That was echoed by the president in the past hour when he was asked about bump stocks.
We'll be looking into that over the next short period of time.
And House Speaker Paul Ryan wants a review of those devices.
Obviously, we need to look at how we can tighten up the compliance with this law so that fully automatic weapons are banned.
Officials still don't know exactly what set off shooter Stephen Paddock last weekend in Las Vegas, but the investigation has turned up some clues. Here's CBS's Jeff Pegues.
More than a month before Before the attack in Las Vegas,
everybody go!
Stephen Paddock booked a room at the Blackstone Hotel in Chicago. It overlooked the Lollapalooza Music Festival in August. Checked in. He also booked rooms overlooking a different festival in Las Vegas and research locations in Boston around Fenway Park. Some of the information is coming from searches of Paddock's online activity and electronic devices. Police are also looking for people who came in contact with Paddock before the shooting, including a woman reportedly seen with him at the Mandalay Bay Casino.
A law enforcement source tells CBS News that Stephen Paddock's girlfriend, Mary Lou Danley, was concerned about Paddock's mental stability. And CBS's Pat Milton says the night before the shootings, Paddock called security at the Mandalay Bay Hotel to complain about noise on the floor below him. In a memo, Attorney General Jeff Sessions says transgendered workers do not have federal discrimination protection. Senior legal analyst Andrew Cohen.
The feds are within their legal authority to make the switch back to essentially reverse the policy put in place by the Obama administration. And this policy, the new one, will continue in force unless and until a federal court and perhaps even the U.S. Supreme Court says otherwise.
The Dow closed at another record high, 22,775, after gaining 113. Now this.
I'm Jay Farner from Quicken Loans. You already know rates are low. The rate today on a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage is 3.875%, APR 4.05%. But choosing the right mortgage lender involves so much more than just a rate. Question: who are you going to call to save serious money on your mortgage or buy a new home? Are you going to call the company with the best client service in America with 11 J.D. Power Awards to prove it? No other lender comes close to that level of client satisfaction. Are you going to call the company with Rocket Mortgage, the industry's most innovative technology? It gives our clients a simpler, hassle-free way to get a mortgage completely online in minutes. No one else has anything like it. Are you going to call the company that's helping to rebuild the great cities of Detroit and Cleveland? Question: why would you call anyone other than Quicken Loans? Call 800-QUICKEN right now or go to rocketmortgage.com. That's 800-QUICKEN.
Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender licensed in all 50 states. NMLSConsumerAccess.org number 3030.
As Elaine Quijano explains, Hollywood exec Harvey Weinstein faces serious allegations.
The sexual harassment allegations stretch back 30 years, with some as recent as 2015, according to the New York Times. In a statement to CBS News, Weinstein's attorney Charles Harder said the New York Times had published false and defamatory statements about Harvey Weinstein, adding, "We are preparing the lawsuit now."
Tropical storm Nate off Nicaragua's coast. Meteorologist David Parkinson, if it moves closer to Mexico.
If it stays just offshore of the Yucatan, it's over warm water the entire time, and you're looking at something that can, as it gets into the Gulf, rapidly intensify into a Category 1, and that's what all the models have right now.
Could hit the Gulf Coast Saturday or Sunday. New Orleans Mayor Mitch Landrieu.
We're encouraging the public to do all they can to prepare for this weather event. Get a plan to protect yourself and your property.
BP shutting down production now in the Gulf of Mexico.
3, 2, 1. Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
Jonathan Walker, the driver in the deadly Woodmore bus crash case, has been released on bond. His next court date is November the 21st. He faces 34 charges, including 6 counts of vehicular homicide. A motion date is December the 12th in the Jonathan Walker case. His bond was recently sliced back from $107,000 to $50,000, and on Monday he made that bond. Wednesday afternoon, the county commission voted 6-2 to keep the bus to Confederate General A.P. Stewart on the south lawn of the Hamilton County Courthouse. Voting in favor, Chester Bankston, Jim Fields, Joe Graham, Randy Fairbanks, Greg Martin, and Tim Boyd. Voting to move it were Greg Beck and Warren Mackey. Greg Beck has been in support of moving it for quite a while now. The Sean Hannity Show is on every weekday from 3 to 6 on Nooga Radio. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News Talk 92.7 now.
Traffic, news, and information. Nooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM. Broadcasting live to over 1 million souls in Chattanooga, the Tennessee Valley, and beyond on frequency modulation 92.7. Sean Hannity. 25,000 watts on digital FM 95.3 HD4. CBS Radio News. NASCAR. Bloomberg Markets. David Tulis. Streaming strong at NoogaRadio.com. Live on YouTube and Facebook. Nooga Radio. News Talk 92.7. Chattanooga Radio.
You're listening to 92.7 FM, Nooga Radio, and NoogaRadio.com. Clutch with Keon Rose is this show. And I'm going to have to give you some of my picks now, some of my college football picks, because we've got a lot of teams on their bye weeks this week, which I think is good for some of you, right? Tennessee's not going to be playing this week, for instance, and that's good for them because, you know, maybe recoup, maybe recover, lick your wounds from that loss, and just take some time off, right? Like for me, I like it when my team's on a bye week. I root for the Longhorns. Texas was on a bye week last week, and their off week is great because I can't be disappointed by them playing football in front of me and upsetting me. So it's great. It's particularly great. If you're Tennessee, I'm sure the week off helps. But from the teams that we do have, let's start with the SEC early in the day. Georgia, Vandy. Georgia's a 17.5-point favorite over the Vanderbilt Commodores. The Commodores, by the way, have played 3 straight games now, including Georgia, against ranked opponents, right? Including number 1 Alabama, now number 5 Georgia, as well as I believe K-State was ranked 18th when they played them. So yeah, no, I mean this has been a tough stretch for Vandy, in large part because they're playing opponents that are better than them, just overwhelmingly better. And I mean that has to stand for something, right? Like they're going to end up at the end of this season, I think, having a particularly good record. But it's unbelievable to me how daring they are in terms of the schedule, that they've just played a bunch of tough opponents. Now, here's the thing, too, with Vandy that you might find surprising about this game. Vanderbilt has actually excelled at passing the football, and they have struggled at running the football, which is something that I did not think would be possible for this school, in large part because they've been so good at running the football over the past few years. Kyle Shermer, I believe, as a quarterback, has come into his own, but Vanderbilt in the past has relied very heavily on Ralph Webb as their running back. I think that Ralph Webb has done a lot for Vanderbilt in terms of keeping this school relevant. I personally believe that when Ralph Webb graduates from Vanderbilt, they should build a statue out in front of him in Nashville. They should build a statue of Ralph Webb out in front of the stadium. That is how important to the current structure and build of the Vanderbilt Commodores and the fact that they are a watchable, good football team. That is how important I think Ralph Webb has been, right? He is the most talented member of that team and has been for years. And now I think it's Shermer. And while the offense identity has shifted to passing, I did not expect them to struggle this much running the football, but they certainly have. And I think that's going to play into this. If you can't run the football against Georgia, it's already hard to move the ball against them. If you can't run the football against Georgia, you're dead in the water. And it doesn't matter to me, I don't think, for this game, whether or not Georgia winds up playing Jacob Eason or Jake Fromm. I think that they are the better team either way. And I think Georgia wins this one going away. 17.5-point favorite. That's the line from Vegas. I think that looks about right. Auburn, Ole Miss. Auburn is the 22.5-point favorite over Ole Miss. I think that Ole Miss and Shea Patterson got off to a very hot start, but there was only but so much winning that Ole Miss would be capable of doing, in large part because they are a team that's depleted, and they are a team that's going to be depleted for a while. I'm talking about the next couple of years because of what they've gotten themselves into with regards to this scandal, of which Hugh Freeze was certainly a part of. I think that that Saturday at noon on the SEC network, Auburn's going to advance to 5-1. And while it looks to me like Auburn is missing some things and that they're not quite the power that they ought to be, they're still very much in the mix of this thing in terms of trying to be a contender to Alabama. I said at the beginning of the season it was either going to be LSU or it was going to be Auburn. I did not realize that LSU was going to beat themselves in this way, though. And it wound up being Auburn. They're 22.5-point favorite for this game. That does look correct. The way that their offense has managed to come alive as of late. And defensively, I don't know that Ole Miss is going to be able to score points against Auburn. Florida versus LSU is the game of the day, the SEC game of the day on CBS at 3:30. I'm going with LSU to try and turn this thing around. I felt like in the second half of that game against Troy, LSU looked more like themselves. I thought that game was not necessarily indicative of LSU as a team, though the loss was certainly disappointing. Florida is a 2.5-point favorite in this game. I don't trust either team. I certainly don't trust Florida's offense, right? Like what Troy was able to do, Troy came out swinging. They had a plan. They were able to run some trick plays. They were able to get some early points against LSU and really punch LSU in the mouth early in a way that I don't think that the Tigers expected. I don't see Florida doing that same thing, that they've struggled offensively. I know they're 3-1. It's a bad 3-1. You can be a bad 3-1. You can be a good 1-3. I don't trust them. I do not. And so, yeah, I think that this is something that, while I understand that LSU has been underwhelming thus far, I think they turn it around here, at least look respectable here, and give Florida a black eye. Arkansas and South Carolina play on the SEC Network at 4 o'clock. I particularly expect this game to be some kind of a snooze fest. Arkansas is a 2.5-point favorite over the Gamecocks. And look, I don't, this game could honestly go either way. I am disappointed in Arkansas in the way that Arkansas has played this season, both defensively and offensively. And I don't know what Brett Bielema has to do to get his guys together, but I believe more in South Carolina than I do in Arkansas. And I know that Vegas has Arkansas as a 2.5-point favorite. I don't really care. I trust Jake Bentley. I trust that offense. I trust Will Muschamp more than Brett Bielema this season at this particular juncture. And of course, the last game in the SEC is Alabama, Texas A&M. The Aggies are surprisingly 4-1. Alabama's 5-0, and I think Alabama beats Texas A&M because I don't see how it is that A&M is able to, raise enough points to get going against Alabama. Alabama has looked dominant lately, right? They've struggled at points this season, and when I say struggled, I mean struggled relatively for them. But when they've looked dominant, they've looked truly, truly dominant. And I think that if you are Texas A&M, and it feels like so long ago, but if you're capable of giving up the kind of comeback that UCLA was able to engineer and put together, if you're capable of giving that up, right, then it's time to look at you and go, you can't beat the Crimson Tide. There are years where I thought, look, the Aggies have a chance, right? Johnny Manziel's done it. I thought last year when Trevor Knight was their quarterback, they really had a shot because Trevor Knight's beaten Alabama before. I thought, well, okay, they've got a shot. But you know what? This year, Kellen Mond has surprised me. He has played better than I thought that he could. I do not see the Aggies pulling this one out over the Crimson Tide. Though I have to say, I will be rooting for it. I will be rooting for the Aggies to pull this one out over the Crimson Tide, in large part because it's going to shake up everything. And if it shakes up everything, look, that's more interesting for me to talk about. That's what I'm rooting for, right? Like at this point, I am just rooting for interesting. I am rooting for the best storyline here. Watch with Keon Rose on Nooga Radio and NoogaRadio.com. So I'm going to shift over to, let me give you a baseball update real quick. And then I'm going to shift on over to the NFL because there is a story out of Washington involving a racial slur and an athlete and some hypocrisy, I imagine. It's all coming full circle today. It's all coming full circle today. But your update here is game one of the ALDS between the Houston Astros and the Boston Red Sox. And I think, unsurprisingly, Houston beating Boston. Top of the 8th inning, 8-2 lead for the Astros over the Red Sox. And then coming up here in a little bit, we've got Cleveland and New York. We've got the Yankees and the Indians playing later. I believe Sonny Gray is the projected starter for the Yankees. And so, yeah, this is it. And Trevor Bauer is the projected starter for the Indians. So this is it, man. It's officially October. Baseball is here. So, jumping to the NFL really quickly, because Terrell Pryor was caught on camera shouting, bleep you, to some fan. And, you know, that's never acceptable for a player to lose his cool that way. But Terrell Pryor says he has a very good reason for losing his cool, which is that some fan called him the N-word, which, of course, is never acceptable. Just never, ever, don't. Unacceptable things going in both directions. And you have the Washington Redskins releasing a statement that no use of a racial slur is acceptable. And, the jokes are obvious here. I don't even have to make up these jokes. The Washington Redskins' name might be a racial slur. You have some Native Americans that say that it isn't, but you also have some Native Americans that say that it is. And you do have to worry about the feelings of those people when it comes to whether or not that's offensive. And I know that there are a number of high school teams that have the nickname the Redskins. I just wonder at the logic of a team releasing a gigantic official statement about racial slurs when there is a controversy over whether or not that team's same name is in fact a racial slur. Right? And this is an issue, by the way, that I have flip-flopped on because, as you know, I am a fan of that team. And it's one where initially I took, I believe, the wrong side of that issue, which is to say that, there's nothing offensive about it at all. There's nothing offensive about this team and their name. Right? And I'm not one of those people that refuses to say the team name. It is the name of the team, and I don't know to what level of offensive it is, as I have not actually ever met anyone who is offended by the name. But that time comes around, and someone's like, "No, this deeply offends me." I'm done. I've looked for it. It's one that's complicated. It is very complicated because it's something that does not necessarily mean racism. It's complicated. It just is complicated. Like I want to stand here and tell you it's obvious they should change the team name. But here's the thing. I think that the nature of it is that there are people who are offended by the connotation of the name, right? By the connotation of the word Redskin, they are offended. And if that is, it's enough people, right? Like it's enough Native Americans that there's a lawsuit, that there's a court case, that the trademark got removed and then reinstated. And to me, it's like, okay, when you start building around this thing and there is that level of hurt, you do have to consider the possibility that you are hurting somebody. You do. Like if you own that football team, and I understand Dan Snyder has said he is never changing the team name, so this feels in a lot of ways like a moot point. But if you do consider the possibility that you are hurting somebody, and you actually care about that person and their feelings, shouldn't you do something about it, right? I'm not one of those people that believes that if even one person is offended, we should all just kowtow to one person, right? Like that's crazy. But this isn't one person. This is more than one person. It's enough people that there's an actual court case and an actual court battle over this thing. There's enough people that during the Super Bowl, every so often, they'll release a commercial about the team name that'll air in Washington, D.C. They will run an ad against the Washington Redskins. They will air that ad. And at this point, there's enough hurt there. There's enough people who can raise enough money over it that you have to consider that this is hurting somebody. Right? And I don't want to do the thing where I try and quantify how many people have to be hurt for you to stop doing something. I would say, right? Like, as I know, I certainly realize at this point that enough people are hurting. That ain't good. Enough people feel hurt by that name. And so, yes, for the team to go racial slurs here, never, and your name is one, Come on now. You have to realize the problem with that. Right? And if you want to keep it Native American themed, because I noticed that nobody has a problem with the Chiefs. And since the Cleveland Indians have removed Chief Wahoo as their logo, which that boy, Chief Wahoo. But anyway, yeah, since they've removed Chief Wahoo as their logo, nobody has a problem with the Indians. No one has a problem with the Braves. Even though, again, if your mascot's going to be Chief Nakahoma, that's racist. That is. But since we haven't seen Chief Nakahoma since what, the early 90s? No one has a problem with the Braves. If you want to stay Native American themed, I think your name needs to be very generic and possibly not a descriptor of someone based on the color of their skin. I would go with that as a start. Also, possibly, you might want to consider a specific Native American tribe, right? Because that's the thing that Washington will run out there. Washington will run out there. The Redskins will say, their personnel, their PR people will come out and say, look, we have found a Native American group that supports us. And they're not offended by our team name. So why not just go with the name of that Native American group? Why not go with the name of that tribe? If they're not offended by it, then you have at least one group of people who, if you use their name, would not be offended by you using their name to nickname your football team. Why not do that? Because that's the reason why Florida State's not in any particular kind of trouble, right? The Florida State Seminoles, because they are specifically named after a specific Native American tribe, namely the Seminoles, aren't in any kind of trouble because they were able to settle specifically with the Seminoles. The problem that the Washington Redskins have is that their team name describes Native Americans sort of in a general way, some of whom are offended, but some of whom aren't. And so the Redskins are hiding behind the fact that some people aren't so that they get to continue to ignore those who are. And it's very duplicitous. It's very two-faced to then say, well, I have a player on our team that was called a racial slur he didn't like. And racial slurs are not okay. Well, if it's so obvious, and if you know this, because I noticed that you did not poll all black people, right? You just know one guy was offended. If you know that that's not okay, then I feel like this argument has sort of wrapped itself up. I do. I think it's wrapped itself up ages ago, but at this point, it's comically apparent is really what it is. It's comically apparent. So yeah, I don't know what you do there. I don't know what you do there if you're Washington, but releasing that statement just makes you look silly. So coming up, we're going to give you my NFL picks. I'm going to start with, should I start with or should I end with the Thursday night pick? I'm going to end with the Thursday night pick because that's the one that's happening tonight. I believe that that's the Patriots and the Buccos. And I think that this game is interesting, if not for at least one reason, which for me, I'm a digital guy. I'm a very technology-oriented guy. I love to see the way in which technology has changed our world. I like to observe that stuff. And I'm telling you, we talk about the NFL, we talk about the NFL's low ratings. And one of the things that we want to wrap up into the ratings is, well, players are kneeling. Players are doing their activism during the national anthem. Which, again, how selfish of you to hijack someone else's protest for that. But also, TV's dying as an industry. TV is going the way of the dodo, and people are unplugging like never before. And Thursday Night Football tonight will be on Amazon Prime. You can stream the game legally on Amazon Prime, right? People have been streaming games illegally forever, but you can stream the game legally on Amazon Prime. And I know they tried to do it last year on Twitter. I thought it was kind of a disaster on Twitter, but streaming it on Amazon Prime, I think, is a very nice touch. And also Amazon, I think, is better at promotion than Twitter is. Twitter is not trying to necessarily go out there and promote, hey, the NFL's on Twitter, though if Twitter were any kind of smart, that's exactly what they would have done. But getting these games on Amazon is a nice trial run to see if you have a paid service, if you have an Amazon Prime or a Hulu, or a Netflix? Would you be interested in watching sports, live sports, on a service that you already pay for to watch TV? Because a lot of this stuff does come with the fact that, like, it's live. The reason why live sports exist on TV is because people will tune into live sports in a way that they will not tune in to live TV shows. And if Amazon Prime and Hulu and Netflix can duplicate their success with live sports like they've done with TV shows and movies, we might not have traditional TV as we know it. But with Keon Rose on Nooga Radio, 92.7 FM.
Traffic, news, and information. Nooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
Jonathan Walker, the driver in the deadly Woodmore bus crash case, has been released on bond. His next court date is November the 21st. He faces 34 charges, including 6 counts of vehicular homicide. A motion date is December the 12th. In the Jonathan Walker case, his bond was recently sliced back from $107,000 to $50,000, and on Monday he made that bond. Wednesday afternoon, the county commission voted 6-2 to keep the bust of Confederate General A.P. Stewart on the south lawn of the Hamilton County Courthouse. Voting in favor, Chester Bankston, Jim Fields, Joe Graham, Randy Fairbanks, Greg Martin, and Tim Boyd. Voting to move it were Greg Beck and Warren Mackey. Greg Beck has been in support of moving it for quite a while now. The Sean Hannity Show is on every weekday from 3 to 6 on Nooga Radio. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News Talk 92.7 now.
Traffic, news, and information. Nooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM. Broadcasting live to over 1 million souls in Chattanooga, the Tennessee Valley, and beyond on frequency modulation 92.7. Sean Hannity, 25,000 watts on digital FM 95.3 HD4. CBS Radio News. NASCAR, Bloomberg Markets, David Tulis, streaming strong at NoogaRadio.com. Live on YouTube and Facebook. Nooga Radio, News Talk 92.7. Chattanooga Radio.
At Summit Rentals and Sales, we understand that bad things can happen to good people. So with a credit score of just 500 and a low down payment, we can help you get into a real nice pre-owned car or truck.
Really? Wow. Can you repeat that?
Sure. At Summit Rentals and Sales, with a credit score of just 500 and a low down payment, we can help you own a real nice pre-owned car or truck. Plus, you can rent one of our vehicles with no credit card or utility bill, starting at $25 a day plus tax. Summit Rentals, 5012 Battlefield Parkway, Ringgold, Georgia. Call 423-667-7167.
Goss Insurance. Yes, we are local. And no, we don't have an 800 number. In fact, our mobile numbers are on our business cards. We live, work, play, and worship in Chattanooga, and we would love to help with your insurance. Business, auto, home, life insurance. Call now, save money. Call Goss Insurance for all your insurance needs. Goss Insurance, 875-2500. 875-2500.
Hey, dude, check this out. Have you ever seen one so big?
Whoa, look at the size of that.
Look at this little itty-bitty one.
Wow, that's really small.
They have them big, small, and everything in between. You'll always find the biggest variety of knives at the knife shop at Frost Cutlery in Ottawa. We're talking about over 40 brands of knives, including Benchmade, WR Case & Sons, Booker, and all the Frost Cutlery brands. Now, Sam, you've been to the cutlery shop. Is it amazing?
Spectacular. The knife shop at Frost Cutlery in Ottawa. They have knives, swords, kitchen knives, ammo, and reloading supplies, plus survival gear.
It's the knife shop at Frost Cutlery, open 7 days a week. Hey, girls, you're going to love this. We're going to the knife shop. Hey, let's not tell them they have ammo and loading supplies. The knife shop at Frost Cutlery, open 7 days a week. You'll always find the biggest variety of knives. You're going to love the knife shop at Frost Cutlery in Ottawa. The knife shop.
And tell them David Tulis sent you.
Hi, this is Eric Felton. Taxes, accounting, business advice. I've got a neat brochure, 12 ways to improve your business profits. Come on by for a free consultation and we'll give you a copy. E.J. Pelton Company, 332-3339.
He's doled out so much cash, such a huge mountain of cash, that he's become a national star. Rick Davis. You know the story. Cash, 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 and more cash. People can't believe it. They want to see it. And now Rick Davis has a new TV show. National TV, USA and Canada. He's got the gold and silver, diamonds and rings. You get dizzy just thinking about it. Rick's selling. Rick's buying. Cash, cash, cash. We interrupt this commercial to bring you an important announcement. Rick Davis National TV Show, reaching over 80 million people nationally and internationally. Check your local listing for airtimes. Rick Davis hasn't gone Hollywood, he's gone Chattanoogan, and Hollywood loves it. And so will you. Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds debut show. See Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds Brainerd Road now. He's got the gold and silver, diamonds and rings. You get dizzy just thinking about it. Rick's selling, Rick's buying. The autographs are free.
This is Chrissy, and this is Summer of Summer Cares. There are too many homeless veterans in Chattanooga. Please help us in our Shoebox for Veterans campaign. You can fill a shoebox with hand warmers, hand sanitizers, hand wipes, cough drops, razors, shaving cream, toothbrush, toothpaste, soap, shampoo, deodorant, snacks, socks, gloves, and even a small blanket.
And make sure you drop your shoeboxes or your shoebox items off at Nooga Radio Studio on Hickson Pike across from Bojangles below Goss Insurance, Sonic on Hickson Pike next to Front Runners, or Alpine Crest Elementary School.
Please join us at the Community Kitchen in Chattanooga on November 10th from 11 to 12:30 and help us distribute these care packages to the homeless veterans of Chattanooga. No veteran should ever go homeless.
Hi, this is Eric Pelton. Taxes, accounting, business advice. I've got a neat brochure, 12 ways to improve your business profits. Come on by for a free consultation and we'll give you a copy. E.J. Pelton Company, 332-3339.
Nooga Radio, digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM knows your opinion is important. So call 800-8949. Agree or disagree? Call 423-800-8949. 800-8949. Nooga Radio, 92.7 FM and 95.3 HD4. News Talk Nooga Radio.
You're listening to 92.7 FM, Nooga Radio and NoogaRadio.com. The show is Clutch with Keon Rose. I'm Keon Rose, if that was not apparent, if that was not obvious. And right now, we've got a little bit of high school Thursday night football action. McMinn County taking on the Ottawa Owls in the first quarter of that game still. I do not have a score for you on that just yet. I'll see if I can get one before the end of the show. Also, we've got some baseball action starting in about 5 minutes or so. We're going to have the Yankees taking on the Indians. Right now, the Astros and the Red Sox are playing. Top of the ninth inning, 1 out. Houston leading Boston 8-2. And if Boston can't get anything done here, then game 1 of that series will be in the books. Jose Altuve, 3 home runs, by the way. And Altuve is a guy in consideration, you'd have to think for the MVP of the American League, just based on how he's been playing thus far. But he's having himself some kind of day. 3 home runs, 3 RBIs. I mean, guys doing a tremendous job in game 1 for the Astros. And I remember the Astros were horrible. What about this turnaround? I think that's got to give you some hope if you're a Braves fan. Because that to me is something that's possible in baseball. If you start to be strategic, if you build your farm system, if you are analytical and data driven, you can be very good in baseball. And I think the Braves are headed in that direction. It's hard to say necessarily if they're going to get there as fast as the Astros got there, but I can't imagine that it's going to take too much longer because they've been on this process for 2, almost 3 years now. these things tend to turn very quickly in baseball. You look up one day and realize, oh, the Astros are good. So I'm saying that's possible. And so, yeah, you got that happening. You've got Indians and you've got Yankees later. And I think it feels right to have the Yankees in the postseason. I don't think they beat the Indians, though. I think Cleveland is too good. I think they're too good. That's starting pitching for them. They're starting Bauer in this game. Kluber has been a monster. I just think that Cleveland is too good. They had that 22-game winning streak in the middle of the season. I don't think that the Yankees have enough in terms of pitching to hang. And I think pitching is what it is in the postseason. I think that that's where it's at. It's going to be fun. October is officially here. Baseball is officially in playoff mode, and that's the most interesting time to watch baseball, in my opinion. So I'm going to give you my football picks, my NFL picks for this upcoming weekend. This is my last show of the week because I am an Adventist, and therefore I will not be having my shows on Fridays any longer, in large part because the sun sets in the middle of my show. So it's going to be a while before I get that back. So we're going to do these picks here on Thursday. I'm not going to do the Thursday night game until the end because that's the game that we're all looking forward to tonight. So I'm going to skip on to head to Sunday, the first 1 p.m. game listed, Bills and Bengals. The Bills are 3-1. The Bengals are 1-3. And somehow the Bengals are a 3-point favorite in this game, which I don't understand. The Bills beat the Falcons last week after beating Denver the week before. Andy Dalton has been a nightmare. Tyrod Taylor has been really good. The Bills seem to be able to score in a variety of different ways. They're a very versatile team. I don't understand. I'm going with Vegas is giving the Bengals the home nod here. But maybe I also think that the Bills are a fluke. I don't see the Bills as being a fluke. I saw that some legitimate victories. Tyrod Taylor looks like a very solid quarterback. 5 touchdowns and 1 interception on the season. LaShawn McCoy has been running, and when he looks unstoppable, look out for one of those days. And he has had those moments. So I think that the Bills are better than the Bengals are. Unless you suddenly expect Andy Dalton to start turning things around and looking like a good quarterback, which doubtful, quite frankly. Next up, the Cardinals and the Eagles. Cardinals are 2-2. The Eagles are 3-1. They're also 6.5-point favorites. They're also the home team. And look, the Cardinals have a lot of things going for them, right? The fact that Larry Fitzgerald is somehow a superhuman who will not go away. And when they have good moments from Carson Palmer, and that happens sometimes, they're capable of winning football games. And sometimes their defense is capable of stepping up. I don't see them beating the Eagles here, though. I really think that the Eagles have legitimately taken that step. I think that they've beefed up their defensive line, right? I think they adding Chris Long over the offseason, drafting Derek Barnett. Carson Wentz is playing very well. They're running the ball behind LeGarrette Blount, and it looks good. Zach Ertz is looking like a Rob Gronkowski class tight end in terms of, look, I'm just a big guy that I get the ball, and then good luck trying to tackle me in the open field. So, yeah, I think that the Eagles are just better than the Cardinals on multiple levels. I think the Cardinals' defense has regressed some. I think their special teams has regressed as well. And Carson Palmer is the definition of regression. So I'm going to go Eagles over Cardinals. I think the Cardinals are getting a little underrated here, though. I think the Cardinals cover. The Jaguars and the Steelers. The Jags are 2-2. Surprisingly, the Steelers are 3-1. I don't trust the 2-2 of these Jaguars. I think the Jaguars were able to get their 2 victories over bad defenses. I think the Steelers, though, more reliable. Le'Veon Bell looks like his usual Le'Veon Bell self. Already 324 rushing yards this season and 3 touchdowns. Ben Roethlisberger with 6 touchdowns thrown to 2 interceptions. And, of course, he's got one of the better receiving cores in all the NFL. The other team, Jacksonville, has got Blake Bortles, right? So I don't care how good Leonard Fournette looks. The quarterback is still Blake Bortles, and you don't know. Blake Bortles has given us 2 kinds of performances this year, which is good because Blake Bortles usually gives us 1, and it's usually horrible. So that being said, the 8-point favorite home team Steelers, I'm going to go with them. Titans, Dolphins. 1-point favorites are the Titans. Marcus Mariota may wind up playing, but we don't know. They're taking him day to day. it's a tough one to call because if they've got Mariota, I think I pick the Tennessee Titans and I pick them easily. I still pick the Titans either way because Jay Cutler has been horrid. Let's go with horrid. Horrid is a nice word. Marcus Mariota has been pretty lights out. Didn't look very good last week, but that being said, I think that the Titans are still the better football team either way. If Marcus Mariota is not able to go, which I think that he probably shouldn't be able to go because let's be honest here, your division is weak. Go ahead and get your quarterback healthy. I wouldn't rush him back. If he's not ready to go, Matt Castle will get the start. Don't know how good Matt Castle can be, but I can't imagine that Matt Castle is going to play any worse than Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler has been playing this season thus far. Jay Cutler, by the way, 2 touchdowns this season, and we're 4 games in. 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Jay Cutler in his career has thrown as many picks as he has thrown touchdowns. And that continues to hold, even if the number of touchdowns is incredibly, incredibly low. This week's edition of the Doo-Doo Bowl brought to you by the San Diego Chargers and the New York Giants. 0-4 versus 0-4. The Giants are 3-point favorites because they're the home team. Phillip Rivers has looked like garbage. Eli Manning has looked like garbage. The numbers, by the way, are the same. Phillip Rivers just a hair over 1,100 yards. Eli Manning as well. Both guys with 6 touchdowns. Both guys with 4 picks. They're the same person right now. It's a little scary, right? The Chargers are running the ball better than the Giants are. So I'm going to go with the Chargers. I know it doesn't feel right? Like the Chargers have looked like they're designed to lose right now. I don't know why. But I'm going to go with the Chargers because the Chargers have had more success with Melvin Gordon running the ball than the Giants have had running the ball. Sterling Shepard is still their leading receiver because they did miss some time with Odell. I just think that this game winds up being an unnecessary shootout, and I think that the Chargers in a shootout, I like the Chargers in a shootout. I don't like the Chargers in these low-scoring games because it usually winds up being, oh, look, it's the Chargers down by 5 with 30 seconds to go. Where do we go from here? But in a shootout, I think I like the Chargers in a shootout more than I like the Giants. I don't like the way that the Giants are designed, and I think that the Giants are poorly coached as well. So there's that too. The 49ers and the Colts, Doo-Doo Bowl Part 2. You've got the Niners are 0-4. Brian Hoyer is their quarterback. The Colts are 1-3. They're 1.5-point favorites. And right now, I like Jacoby Brissett more than I like Brian Hoyer. I like Indianapolis more than somebody, and that's scary. That's absolutely scary. Though, if you're Indianapolis, there's a certain level of tanking that's got to be going through your mind, right? Like you tanked your way to Andrew Luck, which is incredible. And now that you've got Andrew Luck, the biggest complaint that people who follow Andrew Luck have is, where are his weapons? Where is his big, strong wide receiver? Where is his running game? And I know Frank Gore has been playing out of his gourd, but like Frank Gore is ancient. That can't continue forever. Where is his offensive line? You've got the new GM in there. Tank away the season. Get a high pick for Luck, and then you've got Luck and maybe a nice little weapon for him to have. And then maybe you can also move Jacoby Brissett because he's playing pretty well, and maybe somebody might want that, seeing as how there's so many horrible quarterbacks in the NFL right now. The Jets and the Browns. The Jets are 2-2, which is a shock to me because I thought you got all these 0-4 teams. Giants 0-4, Chargers 0-4, Niners 0-4, Browns 0-4. If you would have told me there would be multiple 0-4 teams at the beginning of the season and that the Jets would not be one, I would have called you crazy. But lo and behold, the New York Jets are not one. They're the New York team that's not the 0-4 team, which is alarming to me, which is crazy. So yeah, the Jets are 2-2. They're somehow getting something out of Josh McCown. McCown playing pretty decent football. He's not losing them games. Powell is running very well. And, the Jets offense looks competent. It looks competent. Maybe an insult for some people, but not for them. The Browns are 0-4. It's a weird 0-4, right? Because you can see the talent on that team. I look at Deshaun Kaiser, and that's the guy that I look at and go, he should look better than he does, right? 3 touchdowns, 8 interceptions on the year so far. We knew he was rough. We knew he was a project. Biggest problem right now for the Cleveland Browns? No receivers. Their number one wide receiver is Kenny Britt, arguably the worst wide receiving core in the entire National Football League, the Cleveland Browns. So I think the Jets probably come away with this one. Who knows, though? Leave it to the Jets to lose the game that you assume that they're going to win, though. That seems like the most New York Jets thing ever. The Panthers and the Lions face each other, 3-1 and 3-1. 2.5-point favorites are the Lions, and I'm going to go with the Lions. I like Matthew Stafford a whole lot more than I like Cam Newton right now. Cam Newton, even though the Panthers were able to beat the Patriots last week, Cam Newton did not look good. Cam looked bad. And they still beat the Patriots, which tells you everything you need to know about the Patriots defense, which is historically bad right now. Yeah, so Cam was able to beat them going deep, but like make no mistake about it, Cam gave them some opportunities. He threw some interceptions in New England. I don't know what's up with the Patriots, and I think we'll get into that in a second here because they are playing in the Thursday night game against the Buccaneers. But I like the Lions a whole lot better. I think Matthew Stafford has been playing the much better football. 7 touchdowns, 1 interception. Amir Abdullah has been running the ball like a monster, and Golden Tate continues to be Matthew Stafford's best target, and really good fantasy pickup, by the way, if you're looking for one. Got 24 receptions on the year already. You got Ravens 2-2 versus Raiders 2-2. Derek Carr may be out with an injury. If he plays, I take the Raiders, but if he doesn't, I don't think the Ravens are bad. Here's what I think about the Ravens. I think the Ravens are inconsistent. I think the Ravens are playing typical 8-8 football, up one week, down the next. And I see Flacco as being the ultimate guy that embodies that. Now, if somehow the Ravens are able to back into the playoffs at 9-7, I feel like Joe Flacco is an Eli Manning-esque guy in which he comes to life in the postseason if you can somehow get him there. But throughout the season so far, he's been overwhelmingly disappointing. He has offensive line issues, no Marshall Yanda. He has been average when Marshall Yanda has been on the offensive line, and he has been horrific when Marshall Yanda has not been there. His quarterback rating when Marshall Yanda is on the line, around 60. His quarterback rating when Marshall Yanda is not there, 9. Okay, 9.1. I'll give him back the 0.1. Won't round down for him there. 9.1. Okay. So yeah, I'm gonna go Raiders on this one. Because even without Derek Carr, they can run the ball. I just don't know which Baltimore Ravens team we are ultimately going to wind up seeing. The Seahawks, the Rams face each other, NFC West game, in which somehow the Rams are the good team in all of this. We have seen ups and downs for the Seahawks. We've seen ups and downs from Russell Wilson specifically. He has not been playing his most consistent football. Jared Goff looking very good. 1-point favorite are the Rams. That's because they're the home team and nobody knows where to go with this game. But I know where to go with this game. I'm going to take the Rams. I think the Rams are playing incredibly well. Yes, the Seahawks defense is still good. It's still scary. But let's be honest right now. The multi-dimensional teams that the Seahawks have managed to play against, they haven't done a very good job slowing them down or even coming close to stopping them. Right? And we saw this when Seattle played Tennessee, when they played the Titans. Not being able to stop Derrick Henry and DeMarco Murray, and then that added dimension of Marcus Mariota being able to stretch the field vertically hurts them. Here we are with a Rams team that's built a little similarly, except instead of 2 running backs, 1, Gurley. Todd Gurley has been playing incredible football, and he is both the leading rusher and the leading receiver for this Rams team. Jared Goff is just taking what the defense gives him. And Sean McVay, who is, by the way, the youngest coach in NFL history, he's only 31 years old. Sean McVay has figured out how to open things up for Jared Goff in a way that Jeff Fisher was not ever going to do. Just it was never going to happen. And I think Sean McVay, by the way, is a genius. I don't throw that word around lightly. There's an overuse and a misuse of the word genius. I think that Sean McVay is actually a genius. And I am a Redskins fan, and Sean McVay was the offensive coordinator in Washington, and a big part of the development of Kirk Cousins into a guy that people might be seeking after with huge money next offseason has a lot to do with Sean McVay, and I think Sean McVay is going to do the same thing with Jared Goff. The Packers and the Cowboys play in the late game on Fox, 4:25 kickoff, and the Cowboys are 2-2. The Packers are 3-1. It's a bad 3-1 with regards to the fact that the Packers offensively look lost and inert. But I will say this about the Packers, too. They have Aaron Rodgers. And if you have Aaron Rodgers, who's thrown 10 touchdowns so far this year, which I believe is more than anybody else, if you've got Aaron Rodgers, you've got a chance, right? I don't think that Green Bay is better than Dallas, but I think having Aaron Rodgers is better than having most things. Now, I will say this. I don't know that we've necessarily gotten the best football out of Ezekiel Elliott for Dallas, and I think that that's going to play a huge factor in this. Because if Ezekiel Elliott really can't give the Packers everything and more that they can handle, what's going to wind up happening is they're going to turn into a one-dimensional team that relies on Dez Bryant and Dak Prescott to go out there and win. And so far this season, despite the fact that Dak Prescott has thrown 8 touchdowns, that Dez Bryant has 212 yards and 2 touchdowns already. I mean, that's a good year for both guys so far. Despite the fact that we are at both of those points for them, the two of them cannot win for Dallas alone. Now, they are 2.5-point favorites because they are at home. I don't think that that means anything if Aaron Rodgers is the guy on the other side, because Dallas has not shown in the last 2 to 3 years a particular propensity for being able to stop that guy from finding whatever he wants. And it really doesn't matter who his receivers are. And this is a year, by the way, in which, Aaron Rodgers has got Jordy Nelson back, and Jordy Nelson's looked pretty good. Chiefs and the Texans. The Chiefs are 4-0. Texans are 2-2. The Chiefs are 1-point favorites on the road. They are playing the best college ball of anybody in America, including most college teams. They're using read options, triple options, jet sweeps. Andy Reid has turned the college game into something that can work at a professional level. And the Chiefs are putting up major points. They're winning close games. They're winning big. They're winning big. Their defense is stout. And Kareem Hunt, the rookie, is having an amazing year. And I think he's probably going to wind up being undisputedly the rookie of the year for the Chiefs. The Texans are playing really well as well. Deshaun Watson, if we're going to talk about college ball in the NFL, Deshaun Watson, Bill O'Brien has tweaked his system to what Deshaun Watson does best and has pulled things that literally look like he just yanked them out of the Clemson playbook. And it's working. It's working. Deshaun Watson can do a lot of things with his legs behind an offensive line that is not even good. You can't even describe it as average. It's horrible. It's an absolutely bad offensive line. And the left tackle is holding out for money. And yet, Deshaun Watson's getting it done. He's finding DeAndre Hopkins. He's finding Lamar Miller. And he's getting things done for this football team. I still don't think that they're able to beat the Chiefs, though. I think the Chiefs advanced to 5-0. The Vikings and the Bears on Monday Night Football. We're going to get more into that on Monday, but I will say that I am strongly favoring the Vikings because I think the Bears are bad. And I think that Mitch Trubisky does wind up getting the start, and I think they're horrible. Now, tonight, the Thursday Night Football game. The Patriots, the Buccaneers. The Patriots are on pace to have the historically worst defense in their history. And we're talking about the New England Patriots, who, sure, we may know the Patriots as being good, but in the early 90s and late 80s, the Patriots were dreadful. And so was their defense. And if they're going to have the worst defense in the history of that football team, knowing that those defenses existed, that's a little crazy, especially when you consider the fact that Tom Brady is playing fantastic football, okay? He doesn't look old. I thought he might look old. He doesn't look old. He's thrown for almost 1,500 yards. He's thrown 10 touchdowns, no picks. He's the only quarterback in the league, I believe, with no picks. And yet the Patriots are 2-2 because their defense is tragically awful. And they are going up against the Buccaneers tonight. And you can catch that game not only on CBS, but on Amazon Prime, which I just think is a very interesting experiment. But you can catch that game. And I'm picking the Buccaneers. I know the Patriots are 3.5-point favorites, but that's because it's very hard to pick against the Patriots, and it's hard to pick against Brady. But I'm not picking against Brady. I'm picking against that defense that's dreadful. And Jameis Winston has never had so many weapons in his whole life. He's never had this many weapons at his disposal. And the connection that he has, by the way, with Mike Evans is absurd. It seems like he always knows where Mike Evans is on the field. Right? That to me is the level of insanity that I don't know, I haven't seen since Peyton Manning and Reggie Wayne. Where it was like, no matter what happened to Peyton in the pocket, Peyton always seemed to know where Reggie was. And before that, Marvin Harrison. That's the connection that Jameis Winston has with Mike Evans. And you're going to give Jameis Winston that kind of a weapon that's healthy right now and go up against the defense that's been this awful, this tragically bad. I cannot even put into words properly how bad the Patriots defense was. And by the way, there's a possibility that the Patriots defense might have been bad this entire time. The only two elite quarterbacks that the Patriots played last season, three of them. They played Matt Ryan and the Falcons in the Super Bowl. They played Russell Wilson and lost. And they played Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers and beat the Steelers because they own the Steelers. And that's it. Those are the only three guys of any elite status that they've played. It's possible the Patriots have had a defense that's not just been bad, but terabad. And it's been that bad for a while. And we never noticed because they weren't playing anybody good. I'm going to take the Buccaneers tonight. I'm going to take the Buccaneers big over the Patriots. Clutch with Keon Rose, 92.7 FM, Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com. Remember, folks, it's not how you start. It's how you finish. Stay clutch.
The Tennessee Valley's news talk leader,